Well, it's no secret that in laws often have a bad reputation for being a nightmare to deal with, and these 15 Reddit stories don't help. My ex mother in law did several nasty things to me during her reign of terror. Told me that I ruined her son's life because I, yes, me alone, got pregnant, burned off all my hair while coloring it. I had to get a pixie cut, and she's a licensed cosmetologist. Started a fist fight with my mother at my wedding. Well, I guess it's no secret as to why she's the ex mother in law in the story, but it is kind of sad that presumably this crazy ex mother in law caused friction in the marriage. I'm adopted. She has always thrown that in my face. I've always heard her say things like, since nobody knows where you came from, to you have no heritage, to aren't you afraid of what could be wrong with your baby? What exactly does being adopted have anything to do with being able to procreate? Clearly, this mother in law did not like her daughter in law and just used the adoption thing as a way to constantly throw shade at her. Hopefully, that didn't cause friction in the marriage. Ex in laws tried to invite themselves on our honeymoon and stay in the same hotel room. Isn't part of the wedding supposed to be handing off your daughter? Assuming that this story was from the perspective of the daughter. But why on earth would you want to invade the sacred time of your child's honeymoon and stay in the same hotel room? Talk about not having any boundaries whatsoever. My mother-in-law always complains when she isn't asked to babysit when me and my husband looked for someone to babysit the kids. To me, this was an ongoing issue, and at times, years ago we did ask her, but she always had other plans. Well, this morning I woke up to a swollen and bruised knuckle on my right hand. It hurt a lot, and could barely do anything with my hand because it hurt so much. My husband decided to take me to get it checked out, but being so late to call around to ask someone, we asked my neighbor, close friend of mine, to watch the kids, but she wasn't home. I checked with my mom and she couldn't do it, so my husband asked if he could ask his mom. I told him to have a backup plan if she said no. Turns out she said yes. My husband didn't mention me, but just told her we had an emergency and needed her to look after the kids. I'm surprised she actually agreed to help out, and thanked her when she arrived. Me and my husband were gone for 2 hours. When we got home, we found my friend in the living room with the kids. She told us mother-in-law showed up at her door the moment she got home, half an hour after we left, and asked our friend to watch over the kids because she has been unexpectedly called into work. My mother-in-law has no job, so I think she just got bored and expected to leave when she wanted to. She didn't even bother to tell us she was leaving either, which is what I find even more annoying. Not long after, she called my husband and told him to pay her for watching the kids. My husband let her know she wasn't getting paid, and staying half an hour and expecting other people to watch the kids was unacceptable. She offered she should have stayed. This caused mother-in-law to freak. She told him we were both being selfish and should be thankful for her being there when we needed someone. She didn't do anything wrong. My husband told her if she saw no fault in her actions, then she no longer could see the kids or us, and until she realizes her mistake, don't contact him. That's incredibly irresponsible. I don't know how old these kids are. And at least she went and found the neighbor or whatever, like left them with someone that she knew would be safe to leave them with. But why offer to watch the kids or agree to watch the kids if you're just going to get bored after a half an hour and try to find a way out of it without even telling the parents? So irresponsible, so selfish, and clearly that's why they didn't want her to have to babysit in the first place and was clearly a last resort. My husband and sister-in-law have been overweight obese since they were kids. His mother has been a size 6 her entire adult life. Mother-in-law always used food to replace affection and shame them. There have been times we visited when she immediately lectured my husband about his weight in regard to their family history of diabetes, then proceeded to push fried food and sweets on him the rest of the visit. Last year, tired of struggling to lose weight, my husband decided to get bariatric surgery. Mother-in-law made this big show of how she was going to visit and take care of him after the surgery. Cool. A week before the surgery, we go to see a comedian near her city, 2 hours away, and come right home. because my husband is on pre-op liquid diet, tired, and not up for socializing. The day before his surgery, she calls him and tells him she's upset he came to town without seeing her. He calmly explains why we didn't visit. She then throws in that she's also upset we didn't see her for Easter, a month prior, to which my husband points out she wasn't even in town for Easter. He goes for surgery, and I keep her updated. Everything goes well. That Friday, when she's supposed to visit, she tells him she's in the ER with strep throat and sends a pic of a hospital admission bracelet with no date on it. He calls, but she doesn't answer. That Sunday, she sends him a pic of her painting her house. The next week is Mother's Day, which is a tough day for me because I'm estranged from my own mother and deal with infertility. He calls her to wish her a good day, and she says she's upset I didn't call or text her. She actually says, I know OP doesn't talk to her mom, but she can wish me a happy Mother's Day. During this entire time, she stops liking our pics on Instagram. She starts texting my husband pics of weight loss surgery patients with loose skin, saying that's what he'll look like. My husband is losing weight and posting sweaty progress selfies from the gym on Instagram. She texts him, do me a favor and stop posting those ugly pictures of yourself. My husband stands up for himself. I'm sorry you don't like the pics, but my wife, my friends, and I are proud of my progress and how far I've come. It's not the first time I've heard stories like this, and it never really makes any sense that your mother, or any parent for that matter, is going to constantly give you crap for your weight while then enabling the problem at the same time. And clearly, she can't exactly make up her mind on what to be happy or not happy about, because he finally decides to do something for himself to try to lose weight, and then she just starts picking on him for his pictures that he's posting on the internet of his progress. Clearly, it sounds like there's a little bit of jealousy there because perhaps they don't see her as much as she would like, and then takes it out on her daughter-in-law. My ex-mother-in-law threw a screaming fit right before my wedding started because I had forgotten the crystal cake topper that she had purchased. I believe the line, "That fucking bitch did this on purpose to embarrass me," was the one that rang out the loudest once people were stunned into silence by her behavior. Of all things to be so incredibly worked up about on a special day. Clearly, she has a right to be upset because it was special that she purchased this for them, but like, to make a huge scene during the event, clearly not the best way to handle that situation, especially to suggest that her future daughter-in-law did it on purpose. We went no contact with her over a year ago after she threatened to unalive herself because my husband wanted to have a beer on his 25th birthday. I'll play devil's advocate on this one. Maybe she has a reason to have such a strong dislike for alcohol, but her son is 25 years old and can make his own choices, and clearly, she does not need to be that dramatic about it. My mother-in-law is the crazy church lady. Anything and everything can be fixed by going to church more. Only the right kind of Baptist church, mind you. My wife has some pretty bad health issues, and mother-in-law thinks she should stop taking her medication and, you guessed it, go to church more. She once tried to steal my wife's meds to prove they were just poisons and the wife would be better off without them. My mother-in-law is not allowed in our house. Huh. I wonder why. I'm not exactly one who's much for religion. I'd say I'm spiritual, but I definitely don't like the fact that the crazy religious people are most definitely the ones that make all of the religious people seem like they would be crazy. But clearly, she has no sense of boundaries whatsoever if she's going to push her beliefs so strongly that she's actually going to steal her daughter-in-law's medication to try to prove a point that could have been seriously fatal depending on what that medication was treating. She made our wedding a completely stressful, sad, and disappointing day. She completely ignored my family during the dress rehearsal and then made snide comments to them at the reception. She told the wedding florist that we had decided not to go with the flowers my wife wanted and picked the ones she wanted instead. She told the wedding coordinator that we had scraped several key elements to the ceremony so that they didn't happen. She stuck her tongue out, put bunny ears on my wife, and generally didn't cooperate for any of the wedding photos. She said no and kept talking to her table when I asked for everyone's attention to give a toast. She apparently had been bad-mouthing me to my wife's whole family for our entire relationship, and during the wedding weekend, she told them that I was controlling because I stood up to her when she tried to control my wife. She just went behind our backs and did what she wanted anyway, so not that it mattered. She flat out just didn't do any of the things she volunteered to help with. She was rude to my guest who tried to introduce themselves to her. This all culminated in us having a screaming match the morning after my wedding. The rest of the family is scared of her. They talk about her behind her back and then suck up to her face to face. They sided with her in the moment, but then told us after that they agreed with us. My wife didn't speak to her family for about a year after and barely has a relationship with them now, especially her mom. I don't have a relationship with them at all. It sucks for them because we're pretty awesome to hang out with, and they're missing out on a relationship with my amazing wife. Their loss. This is honestly super sad because clearly there was a lot of bad mouthing going on behind their backs before the wedding took place. And then this mother in law or future mother in law decided that she was just going to be a complete and total annoying piece of work during the wedding. And the only thing that kind of annoyed me is that nobody else was willing to call her out on her crap and even like sucked up to her when they were face to face. Like clearly she has not been put in her place enough in her life, and that's why she is the way that she is. She came to stay after surgery when she was dying. I repainted and decorated what had been my office for her so she wouldn't have to use the stairs. Not one word of thanks. I waited on her hand and foot for 6 weeks. It's been 20 years, and she's still alive. I mean, it's one thing to be a little bit dramatic about your current health situation, and perhaps she was legitimately more scared than she should have been about the whole situation, but at least she could have showed some appreciation. My mother-in-law once told my husband he'd have to use the guest Wi-Fi since the other was for family only. True story. Sounds like a real good, solid in-law relationship right there. Makes you wonder what other types of comments were made, potentially behind their backs. What a snide and rude thing to say to somebody, though. You're not actually family, so you get to use the guest Wi-Fi. One weekend, my daughter stayed at my mother-in-law's for an overnight. She bought my daughter a rabbit without our permission or even telling us. We show up to pick up our kiddo, and there is a giant rabbit cage with a dwarf bunny. She bought the bedding and food, so we couldn't turn away because we didn't have supplies. We already have 2 dogs and very little room for a rabbit cage, but my kid was ecstatic. My husband is allergic. My mother-in-law knows this. I'll never understand these lack of boundaries that some in-laws seem to have. First of all, why would she even buy that knowing that her son is allergic? But then to make a purchase for a young child that you know they would be absolutely torn apart if her parents told her that they had to give the bunny back kind of sounds like a way to almost turn the kids against her and make the grandma the favorite? I don't know. That might be a bit of a reach. Let me know what you think. It's more of an ongoing living nightmare than a story. She moved in with us to downsize, selling her condo nearby because it made good financial sense, which translates to her blowing her nest egg on HSN and cruises a few times a year, which means she's never leaving. She rearranges all the dishes in the cupboard dishwasher, all the food in the cabinets and pantry, answers the house phone, and refuses to pass it off to me or my wife without talking to whoever calls for 5 minutes first, downloads viruses on the family computer, burns food all the time when she cooks in the kitchen, stinking up the house and constantly setting off the smoke alarm, clips her toenails on the lazy boy in the living room, parks her car in the driveway, blocking the garage where she won't leave her car in there, that she never drives because she says it's too narrow, so I never get to use my garage or driveway to park my car when I get home and have to park it down the street because there's never any parking available outside my house. It goes on and on and on. I mean, that one really could be a whole freaking horror film, maybe even a series. But the real question for me is, was there any writing on the wall before we decided to make this decision that made financial sense, that you could be potentially putting yourself through hell by allowing this woman to move in and live with you? Did you do this to yourself, or did she just decide to go all evil the moment that she moved in? How about the time we asked her to feed the cat while we were on our honeymoon? We returned to discover that she had rearranged, literally moved, furniture, pictures on walls, kitchen cabinet, and drawer items, etc. I mean, she must have been really freaking bored, or she felt like her way of doing things was so much better in a place that she didn't even live in. When you asked her to do one simple thing, and she decided that she was going to rearrange your freaking house. Sounds like it's time to find another cat sitter. My in-laws invited us to go on vacation to visit my husband's extended family on the other side of the country. We politely declined, telling them that we were planning to visit some really good friends for our vacation that year. My mother in law asked if we'd made firm travel plans yet. We said no, and that we were waiting for our tax return to buy the plane tickets. Her response was, then there's no reason you can't go with us because we bought your tickets to fly out with us. She legitimately thought it would be okay for us to change our vacation plans just because they'd purchased our tickets without asking us first. And again, no sense of boundaries whatsoever. But how do we go from inviting the kids to go on vacation to practically trying to force them when they already made plans and just hadn't fully executed those plans yet because they were waiting for their tax return? Like, why not try to make separate plans without making any purchases first? It's like, in a weird way, you want to think that they mean well, but then they're being so forceful and weird about the whole thing by going behind their back and then spending loads of money on plane tickets that they weren't even sure they were going to be able to use. Stories like this that make me pretty freaking happy that I've got a good relationship with my in-laws. Nothing is ever perfect, but I'm perfectly happy with the way things are. Let me know in the comments your in-law horror stories, and I'll see you on the next one.